Go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you all for being here today. We have a couple of proclamation and acknowledgments that we're going to get to do here today, so that's the reason we're starting out here on the floor. We're honored with Gene Shelburne here, who's going to offer our invocation, and then after that we're going to go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. If you guys wouldn't mind standing up with us as we pray.
Nothing on our agenda for today's meeting, Lord, makes us expect to deal with any items that are all that unusual. We'll zone and plat land, buy an assortment of equipment and supplies, approve contracts and resolutions. But you know, Lord, that virtually every word we speak here today, every decision we make, will reflect our more urgent concerns about the floods that threaten our city. Month after month, Lord, year after year, you have heard all of us complaining that you were not sending us enough rain. Now that the drought has ended and our Playa lakes are back where you put them, we're complaining even more loudly. Forgive us, Lord, for seldom being satisfied. Nothing in this chamber today, Lord, will dry up Lawrence Lake. But we ask for your guidance to keep us from making decisions today that will cause similar distress tomorrow. During this meeting, may the words of our mouths, the meditations of our hearts, be pleasing in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, sir. You guys will join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, once again, thank you guys for coming. Today is a special day. We have a distinguished gentleman here in the audience that we get an opportunity to honor and recognize, not only for outstanding performance on the field, but mentorship and investment in the youth and the individuals that are behind him, a little younger than him, coming up in the ranks that look up to him. And so can I have Miss Tanya C. Winston come up here, please? You know, today I get to give a certificate of recognition to Ziggy Hood. And so nobody knows you as Evander that I know, so I'll just call you Ziggy Hood. But Evander Ziggy Hood, if you wouldn't mind coming up here, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
At this time, citizens, I'm gonna recognize Ziggy, and then we're doing two things here today. I get to give him a certificate of acknowledgement, but then Miss Winston is actually going to give him a key to the city, and they're each going to have something to say. And so today's just a special day where we get to acknowledge and enjoy the successes of others. And so I think that's important as a community. So Ziggy, today, a certificate of recognition for everything that you do for this community and for all of the individuals that you've helped along the way, the people that have poured into your life, and the people that you're pouring into their life. So today we just say thank you for representing our community. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Mayor. This is an honor for me to actually present the key to you, Ziggy. As I have sat back and watched you, you're a very well-mannered man, and the significance of it all is that I also graduated from Paladura High School, so we represent the city very well. And with all of your dedication and professional NFL background, we are so happy. The city of Amarillo would like to present you the key to the city.
I won't take up too much of your time. I did enough crying yesterday when I received my honor as a Texas Panhandle Hall of Fame inductee. I just want to thank the man, the Lord, the man up above, for having this opportunity. Thank you to the city of Amarillo. Thank you to Jockwell, who put everything in motion, my business partner. Thank you to my friends and family that came out today. And I just want to say thank y'all for this honor. Thank you.
If we could, we're going to take a photo. If I can get anyone that's here on behalf of Ziggy Hood to come up, we're going to go ahead and take a photo up here. Ziggy, if you get in the middle there. Absolutely. And anyone that would like to get in the photo, Miss Winston and friends and family, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. Yes. I'm sorry, you want to join me? Let me get one. Oh, man, that's good looking right there. I don't think stand next to too far. Chair. I'm going to get on it.
Thank you. You're so obedient.
Just before we move on, I just want you guys to see, like, in my mind, this is the size that I Okay, at this time, we have a proclamation to read. So Councilman Smith's going to come out and read our proclamation on Elderly Abuse Month.
Thank you very much. Marcy Leffler, is she here?
Marcy's not here, but it'll for her services and the Silver Star Award card.
Whoever wants to represent, come on up here and join me. Just right out of here.
We're going to put you right in the
It's a privilege for me to present this proclamation. Let me read this. Whereas abuse of older adults and persons with disabilities is a tragedy inflicted on a vulnerable segment of the population that crosses all socioeconomic boundaries. And whereas combating abuse of older adults and persons with disabilities helps improve the quality of life for seniors and allows them to continue to live as independently and vibrantly as possible. And whereas Amarillo seniors should be treated with respect and dignity as they continue to serve as leaders, mentors, volunteers, and are important and active members of our community. Now, therefore, we, Mayor and City Council members of the City of Amarillo, Texas, do hereby proclaim the month of June 23rd as Elder Abuse Awareness Month in Amarillo and urge all citizens to work together to help reduce abuse and neglect of people who are elderly or have disabilities. Given under our hands and seal of office, this 13th day of June 23rd. Signed by Mayor Cole Stanley, Don Tips, Tom Shearland, and myself. Let me say, I don't know why Cole Stanley asked me to do this. As I've said in the past in the council, one of these days I'm going to be a senior citizen. Not there yet. If anybody would like to speak on behalf of this group.
Well, I want to first thank the City of Amarillo for recognizing Adult Protective Services and elder abuse awareness. The aging population is one of the fastest growing populations. We're all getting older, right? But we don't like to admit it. We don't like to recognize it. So unfortunately, often our seniors also don't get recognized. The seniors go without care. They go without being checked on. And oftentimes their abuse and neglect is not reported. We're here to try to change that. We're here to provide services to them. We investigate abuse, neglect, and exploitation, as well as more frequently, resolving self-neglect situations. So please, I call all of you, check on your neighbors, check on your family, check on your friends. Anybody you know who's elderly, check on them, see how they're doing. And you can call us if you need extra support. We offer anonymous reporting. You're kept confidential, and we follow up and try to provide services to those in need. So again, thank you, the city, for recognizing it. And thank you, our Silver Star Board and the APS team who go out every single day and work with our clients. Thank you.
Everybody squeeze together and we'll take a couple.
I mean, you're not that old. That's right. 3, 2, 1. One more time.
Thank you.
Are you sure? Open it here. Open it. Tell me.
I don't know if it's mine or yours. I mean, that's yours.
Why are you putting your stuff in my way? It's not decorum. Okay, thank you guys for sharing that moment with us here. We appreciate everyone that's come here to support, and then also to engage in our city business. And so we need you guys. We need to hear you guys. We want to listen. And the next point on our agenda is public comment. And so it's important that we just continue to listen to each other's needs and come together to work towards these common core, common good solutions. So at this time, we're going to hand the meeting over to our city secretary and have her go with 5 public comment.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for participating in today's City Council meeting. Your input and your opinions are important to us, and we are glad that you're here to share them today. At each posted meeting, we invite our fellow community members to address City Council regarding posted agenda items and topics related to city business or policy. Every speaker will have 3 minutes to address the council today. At the end of 2.5 minutes, you'll hear a warning beep alerting you have 30 seconds left to wrap up your thoughts. We do ask you stay within your 3 minutes allotted. We have multiple public hearings today. If you're here to speak on an item with a public hearing, we would ask that you make your comment during either the public comment section or the public hearing, but not both, in order to help us keep accurate records. It's your decision when you would like to speak. When you come to the microphone, please state your name and whether or not you live within the Amarillo city limits. If addressing council on an agenda item, please state your position so that we may reflect that properly in our minutes. If you are speaking to an item not on today's agenda, please know that the Texas Open Meetings Act limits how elected officials may respond. They may respond with a statement of fact. They may ask that your topic be added to a future agenda, or they may refer you to the city manager, who can have staff step out and talk to you about your topic. Again, we thank you for being here today. We did have one person that has pushed their comment to the next meeting, Mayor, so we will have 4 public speakers today. First up, we have Jennifer Yao, and after Ms. Yao, on deck will be Jolie Billings.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Yao. This is my husband, Andy Yao. I have lived in Amarillo for the past 20 years. My husband grew up here. He's a graduate of Amarillo High School. We love Amarillo a lot. It is our home. We have built a business and a family here. We own the Pacific Rim Restaurant on Paramount Boulevard. Sorry we look so poorly. We have spent the day cleaning out our restaurant. It's not a fun job, but it must be done. Now, we are much more fortunate than our neighboring businesses. We only had a 2-inch water intrusion in our foyer. Many of our other neighbors are going to have to completely gut their buildings and start over again. The recent thunderstorm that overflowed Lake Lawrence has turned our parking lot into a mini lake for the past week or so. It's been 43 years since the last big flood, and I brought pictures today to show what I mean. We have come to the City Council today to ask for changes we feel are very necessary to the city. We know you are a new City Council. You're not even a full council until after the election next week, so we're coming early. And however, you have inherited all the issues put off by all the prior city councils. I know everyone says they will do it, but the time now has come to make it happen. And we must invest in our community today, because if it doesn't matter how pretty our downtown is, no one is going to invest in flooding. No one. Number 1, we do need extra pumps added to Lake Lawrence. We need to expand it or both. There's plenty of empty commercial land in that area we could purchase and expand that lake. Divert Western Plaza Drive if you need to. That drainage area is a constant issue, not just to our business, but to all the people who live in that area. There's, just off ahead, about 8 apartment buildings in that area. And I think you caught everybody out in the middle of the night, so thank you for getting all our neighbors out. Number 2, you need to repave Paramount Boulevard from I-40 to 34th Street and Olson Boulevard from Western to Paramount Street. Repairs on our street is often overlooked in favor of Georgia Street or Western Street. Also, we need the light at Blackburn Street flipped back on because everybody's driving through it like it's not there. Number 3, you need to expand McDonald Lake by a minimum of, say, 2 acres so it can accommodate the overflow from the greenways. There's plenty of land available there. If we expand it now before the next flood or the next tornado, we're prepared. I would rather be prepared than be underwater. Put a running trail around it, bike trail. Thank you.
Mr. and Mrs. Yao, thank you for coming in and speaking. As a statement of fact, staff and council tirelessly working to not only mitigate the flood currently, but look at all options moving forward. So we will stay focused on this, and I believe we'll bring you a proposal that will help to remedy what would be a 100-year flood. I know that is not what this is, and it is Mother Nature, but we want to do as you said and be more prepared. So thank you for coming in. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Sorry I look so bad.
All good. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. Next, Jolie Billings. And on deck, after Jolie, will be LaVonda Mosley.
Hi, I'm Jolie Billings. I didn't realize this was a 3-minute thing, so I'm giving copies so y'all can read what I'm not going to have time to say. But my problem is, my neighbor directly next door has Africanized bees. They attacked 9 people in one day, and 3 weeks later, they killed my little dog. I spent $3,400 at the vet trying to
Jolie,
save him.
would you mind moving that microphone closer to you so that they can hear? I don't know that they can hear you online.
Sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm here to beg for a city ordinance to regulate not having Africanized bees in our city limits, in our neighborhoods. They're dangerous. A normal honeybee will chase a person 6 feet. Africanized bees, 400 yards. A normal honeybee will sting you anywhere on your body. Africanized bees go for your face, your eyes, your throat, your scalp, and they do it in multiples. I'm highly allergic to bees. I have a neighbor having cancer treatment on the other side who's highly allergic to bees. I mean, we're bait. They opened that hive on May 6th while I was having some dying trees taken down out of my yard. And they do that to see if there's still a queen in it so they know how to take care of the hive. Well, that releases thousands of bees. They attacked the 5 people in my yard cutting down trees. I had people running down the street with swarms of bees following them. That was May 6th. May 7th, my neighbor admitted they were Africanized bees, said he would get rid of the hive, but he didn't. May 26th, they attacked my little dog. Took him 2 days to die and $3,400 at the vet. I had to pull the plug and hold him while he took his last breath. But that hive left our neighborhood at 5 a.m. on June 2nd. If it had been removed when he said, I don't know, my baby wouldn't be dead. But there are still 3 other hives in that yard, and Africanized bees overtake nearby hives. And when those are full, they go for the trees in the neighborhood. This is across the street and 2 houses down. They are dangerous. They're very dangerous. Beekeepers don't have to have a license. Anybody can put beehives anywhere in our city with no oversight. I'm begging for an ordinance against Africanized bees, period, and some kind of regulation and oversight of normal beekeeping. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Billings. Can I ask Mr. City Manager if you wouldn't mind getting the information gathered together to council? I don't know if this is an AMW issue or if we would have something on the books, but I'd like to know what existing ordinance would do and if we are to be enforcing that, and if not, then we will look at what we could do here in the future.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Ms. Billings. Next, Ms. Mosley, and then our last speaker will be Nathan Smith.
Good afternoon. I'm LaVonda Mosley, and I'm a resident of Tascosa Acres on the East Creek. I'm speaking in favor of item 7R, temporary staffing services for rain and flooding emergency operations not to exceed $80,000. The residents of the East Creek do understand the devastation that the residents and business owners of Lawrence Lake and Greenways are experiencing. We know that the first responders and city employees are working around the clock to help in these areas and appreciate all their work and hours to assist to get residents back in their homes and businesses reopened. I will mention that the residents are anticipating a meeting with the city members shortly, but I think it is important to remind you all about the damage that the stormwater drainage is doing to the properties along the East Creek. There are areas of major concern at this time in regards to safety, one being the trees that have fallen at each bridge intersection and the trees that are barely hanging to the creek walls. There is a tree on the guardrail at the Frere Lane and Irwin Bridge that has been cut up by a resident and still in the street and on the wall, which has been there for 2 weeks. The Yucca Bridge has a large tree that has fallen into the creek and another tree at the bridge infrastructure with rocks that continue to fall. Every bridge from River Road down the path has mounds of debris that is restricting water flow from Thompson Park Playa. There are kids now climbing in the walls at the bridges and playing in the creek and trying to fish. We are asking the kids to get out of the creek, but we really do not have the authority to enforce this. Another area of concern are the above-ground sewer mains that the pillars have shifted due to the storm drainage water flow, and one where the line is off the pillar and the line is bowed at the Applewood and Creek area. Another area, a tree has grown around the above-ground sewer line in the creek and started growing into the seam of the line. We are majorly concerned about a sewer pollution spill to deal with, as the stormwater drainage is constant coming from the Thompson Park Playa. The residents do not have the equipment, the manpower, nor the resources to clean up the area that the city's stormwater drainage is doing to our land. The residents are doing what we can to control the situation on our land and at our homes. We can't get in the creek to even start the type of cleanup because of the constant water flow coming from the Thompson Park Playa, which we anticipate will last for months. Jared Miller, I believe you spoke about open channels and creeks during the press conference yesterday, June 12th of 2023. By now you should understand that the creek does in fact use the drainage easement on the path of our homes. We are asking the city budget to engineer and assess the massive amounts of city stormwater that is being pumped into an already known flood area and get a plan to remedy and repair the damage to our area. Again, we thank you for your efforts that are being made to assist the Lawrence Lake and Greenways residents.
Thank you, Mrs. Mosley. We do have a meeting scheduled next week and look forward to getting a little more information from you. In the meantime, with the photos that I've seen, Mr. City Manager, can we get staff to go out and review these areas that she's brought to our attention, and with the intention of putting up some caution, do not enter signs, something there that notifies the public not to be on or around those structures if it's public area. Now, if it's a private area.
It's not private. It's at your infrastructure bridges at Yucca, Fairway, River Road. I have pictures of the kids climbing the bridges. I have the families around it. They are the city infrastructures over the bridges. So those are where the trees are falling. The other area, we'll talk about that next week.
Okay. So just on the city-controlled areas, if we could do some signage, please.
Yeah, we can look at that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Our last speaker today is Nathan Smith.
Hello. Nathan Smith, 7404. Jameson? Yeah, that sounds right. Jameson, there we go. I'm here today because somebody took my buddy's gazebo. And you have absolutely nothing to do with that, but my buddies lost their gazebo, and that irritated me quite a bit. So then I found out about Transformation Park. Great project, by the way, at least on paper. You know, it got funding from Hillside Church. Good for the Christy boys. Fantastic. Always love to see them putting money where their mouth is. Street Toyota. Fantastic. And then the American Rescue Plan, which is fantastic. Fantastic project. The oldest, most experienced member of the council you'd think would be familiar with the Establishment Clause of the United States Constitution, but maybe not. So here's the thing. Transformation Park sign says, serving the homeless. Fantastic. No problem with that. That's great use of money. In the name of Jesus. Are you talking about? And the city council at some point, because it's a private-public venture. So in Texas specifically, you think Jesus is automatically associated with everyone with love? I know. In the book, Jesus is a real cool dude. But you also have trans people who have been thrown out of their homes and disowned, who are homeless, who mommy and daddy were real big Jesus fanboys. You think they're going to feel comfortable when they're homeless? Oh, yep, definitely going to go to the Jesus-y spot to And I know Christianity has a very specific method of providing aid to the homeless. We're going to help you so you'll join us. We're going to save your body and soul. And it's easy for them to do with private funds and donations. That's absolutely fine. But you've brought the public into it, and that gives me a fantastic opportunity. Now, I was going to give you an ultimatum, but then I walked in here and we had that invocation, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to get hit with the Christy boy stuff regardless. Fantastic. So now I'm not going to give an ultimatum or anything like that. We've invited Jesus. We've spent money. I have paid for Jesus to be represented. So now I'm going to bring the holy book of the Christian doctrine, and I'm going to compare actions and bills that have been taken by Republican representatives and read verses where Jesus would not be thrilled with the outcome of those bills. You know, basic pointing out hypocrisy. And I have absolutely no life. I'm 100% disabled. I got nothing but time. I can visit you gentlemen every time you show. It's going to be fun. I hope you just get some duct tape, make the crazy basement dweller go back to his basement. Just take the Jesus part out of the public project to make sure the maximum amount of homeless can actually get help. Don't make Jesus the barrier. Don't get me wrong, Jesus is good and all that. Don't make him an obstacle for helping people. If you make it go away, I'll shut up and go away. You won't see me again. I really don't want to care about any of this. Y'all have a nice day.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Appreciate you speaking.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Mayor, that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you, citizens, for speaking here today. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak before we move on? Yes, sir. If you please give us your name and address.
Yeah, Alan Griffithson, 6302 Oakhurst Drive. I'd like to speak to you today, if I can, about a topic that is not on the agenda. It is the fundamental right and sovereign responsibility of parents to direct the upbringing, education, religious training, public civics training, health, welfare, and care of their minor children. Important information relating to a minor child should not be withheld, either inadvertently or purposefully, from his or her parent, including information related to the minor child's mental or physical health, well-being, and education by the city, any of its political subdivisions, agencies, or any publicly funded entity operating within the city. It is necessary to establish a consistent standard and mechanism for parents to be notified of information relating to the education, health, and well-being of all minor children. And it is necessary to establish a consistent legal mechanism to ensure parents retain due process of law for judicial redress of grievances arising from violation of parental rights by governmental and private action in order to promote general peace and welfare of the community. This is a major issue in our state, so much so that many bills were introduced in the last legislative session. One in particular that was signed today is House Bill 969, addressing the right of the municipalities and counties to address issues such as these. So I'd like to ask our city council and our community to consider drafting, receiving, sponsoring, and passing an ordinance that would provide for these things within our community. I'm aware of other communities, other municipalities, other states that have passed these things. We're not talking about creating new law. We're talking about defining what we believe to be right, as I've just read to you there. And I believe this is a position that's supported by the majority of the community. Some of the folks in this room have had the opportunity to see a relevant draft. It doesn't have to be the draft. But I would encourage this city council to consider addressing this issue. We need to see affirmative responses and actions and plans to ensure that we provide parental rights should not be infringed by any government agency or agent without demonstrating a compelling state interest. Providing law enforcement agencies guidance in assisting parents with enforcement of Texas laws and recognizing the possessory responsibilities of parents. We also need to recognize that the parent has specified rights relating to their minor child, providing framework within which they can address their grievances in a civilized and safe manner within the court system. So I thank you for that, and I pray and hope that you will consider this kind of an ordinance.
Mr. Gertensen, thank you for speaking here today. Okay. At this time, we're going to move on to our items here on our agenda. Before we move along here, is there anything that council needs further explanation on before we move into the agenda? Okay, we're going to move along to item 6B, discuss construction progress, timeline, and budget for renovation of the Amarillo Hardware Building as City Hall. Mr. City Manager, if you'd take that one.
All right, Mayor, thank you. We've got Jerry Danforth, Director of Facilities, to kind of walk us through where we're at on the project, construction progress. A number of things have been accomplished on that so far, but we're still early on in the project. Timeline, budget for renovation, and then also to answer any questions council has. Jerry.
Mayor, Council, it's a pleasure to address you on this and inform you on the progress. I'd like to go through the history of the project a little bit first through the PowerPoint so you can kind of see where we're at. At the end of the PowerPoint, we will get into where we are in the budget process and in the construction process, and be more than happy to address any questions you have at that time. Let's see. Doing something wrong, is it? I'll put it for you. All right, I guess. So here's what you're looking at for your new City Hall. This is the Amarillo Hardware Building that we'll be renovating. This is a front view of it. Next view is another front view. Keep in mind, we'll come back to some of these photos to give you a reference when we talk about VE and some of the options we've taken on this to keep this project within budget. Here's another photo of the front street view. This would be from Johnson Street looking at City Hall, also across the street from the MPEV. Same view from a little different angle. Front entrance. This will be one of the features that we're most proud of. This is actually the drive-through area to where people paying utility bills and doing with the business are no longer required to come inside the building. They'll have the ability to drive up, so it makes it a lot more convenient for individuals, especially those individuals with small children that have to take all of the children out of the car seats, come up the stairs into the building, do business, and turn around and walk them all back down, reattach them. Now we have the option to do a drive-through service. This will be the Grant Street side. This is the north side of the structure. This is an aerial view of the north and east side with the drive-through looking back into downtown. This is an aerial view, of course, from Johnson Street. This is where the utility pads are. The generators that will be running and providing backup power is all in a screened-in area around the facility. This will be coming in off of 7th Street. You're looking at a close-up view of the front entrance of City Hall. Initially, we thought we might be relocating Rick Klein. Not Rick Husband, I apologize. Rick Husband, that's not going to happen now. It will stay in Centennial Park. But we do have the option for artwork to be placed on a column out front. The main entrance into the building, and you see that we create a foyer and a greeting area there. That increases security for the building itself. When you come into City Hall, this is where you're greeted. You will actually have somebody greeting you when you come in. A lot of times people come into City Hall, it's a big building, they wonder where they're supposed to be, what they're supposed to do. We will provide that service to where we give you directions on where you're going to be. This is a view of the lobby on the front. This is the upper deck to the second floor. Restroom facilities will be updated. Currently, this City Hall has only one ADA accessible restroom, and it's on the second floor of City Hall. All restrooms will be that. I think you're going to enjoy this one, especially with events like today and some of our previous council meetings. You've noticed that there's not enough room in here to accommodate all of the people that come here. Currently, this room right now has 114 seats in this council chamber. The future council chamber will be 230 seats. Here's the floor plan for the basement of City Hall. You notice off to the left there is the new 311 call center that the city's implementing now for city services. That is self-contained for them, basically keeping the noise down, keeping the traffic down, so that they can do their job to the best of their ability. A lot of this design is similar to what we did for the 911 call center. We found that those things are extremely beneficial when you have somebody in distress or somebody that needs some help, to have clarity and no disturbances while those calls are being taken. That center section that you're looking at there, this is the IT area. The IT department, on their computers and equipment, they bring them in, they have to decommission them for security reasons. A lot of the work is done on that sort of stuff. You notice that that's a big open space. Off to the right is some future plans that can be developed. At this point, current point in time, it is not being developed. The next one, please. Here's what you're going to be looking at the first floor of City Hall. The benefit to this design is 90% of public interaction will take place on this floor. They don't have to wander all over City Hall looking for what they need. You've got utility billing right there. You've got purchase. Utility billing is going to be on the top left, and then the reception area all across the front there, right behind the elevators. Then you get over to the far left bottom. That is the purchasing department. So anybody that's going to be doing bids for the city or needing to do business with the city, from a purchasing standpoint, quick and easy access there.
May I do a quick point of order? Will you pull that microphone a little closer?
Sure.
They're having a hard time hearing you in the...
All right. You'll notice that we have several meeting areas on this first floor. There's one meeting area located here, another large meeting area that's equivalent to what we have in room 105 on the first floor here. Then we have several breakout meeting areas just to the north of that would accommodate smaller groups, like a group of 12 or a group of 24 in those two areas. Then when you go to the far right, that's the HR area. So if you want to work for the city of Amarillo, that's where you go. So we get a lot of people coming in, especially seasonal, when Parks Department is firing off. We get a lot of seasonal traffic walking in, looking for jobs. We want to make it convenient for people to come in and find out how they can go to work for the city of Amarillo. So you're looking at a large HR department that basically encompasses that entire right-hand side. Risk management, or if we have any issues, is just a little bit right there, Andrew. That's that whole area there is risk management. So any of the departments that really have a front-facing relationship with the public, first floor of City Hall. Next slide, please. This will be the second floor of City Hall. Accounting occupies that entire left-hand side. And then IT, all of the programming and all of the stuff that has to be done for the IT department is done in that area. And then we have different areas there in that IT department as that breaks out to the different functions that they would have. The large grayscale area that you see represented in this is undeveloped space. And that's there to the right, and then also to right in that area. Oh. This is the third floor of City Hall. Third floor of City Hall is actually council chambers that you see right in the center, right off of the elevators. Large lobby area. City manager staff occupies, and city council occupies this area back in here. Off to the right, in that section right here, would be the communications department. All public information comes out of that. Of course, all of that is coordinated with the city manager and the city council. Then to the far right is legal staff for the city of Amarillo. Okay? Here's where we're at. The project was funded at $35 million for the entire project. It was approved. The architect that we selected and has performed this work for us is Sims Architects. Our CMAR that we have a contract with is Western Builders. Both of them are represented here today, so if you have some specific questions for them, they're here to answer those if I can't answer them. City Hall construction, the physical construction on the building began last month. The project will be utilizing, and this is something that we're extremely proud of. This bullet point is something that has always been driven by the city managers and city councils. When we spend money on Amarillo projects, we want to use Amarillo contractors. 90% of this group that will be working on City Hall is local contractors doing the job. We had major success with that when we built the MPEB because city contractors took ownership. This was their ball field. This was what they wanted. We feel City Hall is the public's building. We want to make sure that we have as many. Now, the contractors that aren't, actually those skills aren't provided in the local market. It's fiberglass wrapping of beams. There's some demolition that we don't do that type of demolition here in town. Those are the only two contractors at this point in time that are not local. The estimated completion of the new project is fall of '24. Okay, can we go to the next one? I'm going to ask you, Andrew, to do me a favor, kind of blow up that section off to the right so you can see the numbers a little bit better.
Said no.
Can you give me a little bit more? Because I'm kind of old. So here's where we're at in the construction project. And we have been working with our contractor pretty diligently since the CMAR contract was awarded. The first numbers that came back was $34 million just to build the City Hall, nothing else. We immediately went into VE. We had a meeting with Mayor Stanley, kind of showed him where we were at on the project and understanding where we were on the budget. What do we need to do to stay within budget on this to get the full scope that we need to provide to the public? We have been able to reach that goal, and it's taken some diligent work both on our architect's part, on our builder's part, and on our part. As far as the city, Mr. Miller and myself, Mr. Stanley was a part of those conversations. Bringing this construction number down to where we're at today. So you can see where we're at. Now, I haven't gone in and given you breakouts on a lot of those categories of the work to be performed because all through the project, we will continue to take any advantage we can to VE. And by VE, for clarification, it's value engineering. If we see an option or if we see we're getting close to the budget or we're going to have a budget bust, we always take a look at that. So our goal is to stay within the allocated funds that are there. So when you look at the construction numbers, where we're sitting right now.
Mayor, I apologize. We've been trying to chase this thing down, whatever's causing that. We can't replicate it except during a council meeting, and there's something going on in here, and I'm not saying it's press or any guest here, but there's some kind of device here that's interacting with our thing.
We need to pray again. Is that what's getting us?
Yeah.
The new project will fix that,
Yes,
but that's a big price tag to fix that.
What we're looking at. So as you look at these numbers, you see where we get to. We're a little bit over $30 million with our contractor just to do the construction on the City Hall. Now, the additional scope that we're looking at, thank you, Stephanie, that's very helpful. The additional scope we're looking at, we self-perform. So when we look at why would I, and no offense to Western Builders or any general contractor we're working with, why would I pay them a percentage if I can do the demolition on my own? So we take care of the demolition. The utility relocates, the work that we've done with Excel, with Atmos, with communications. You can see the number breakdown. That's what we've done with them. That was self-performed by the city. When we take a look at the A&E, that's a fixed number. It's a negotiated price. And then when we get down to the demo work, we did that. Remember, we took down 3 structures, demolition of 3 structures. That's pretty good value for that number right there. And then the IT, we anticipate the IT number for the new city hall to be around $700,000. We're working with IT on that, and trust me, IT will verify this. When we get into this, we're even tough on our own department saying, is there a better deal that we can get? So we're constantly looking at where can I get the best deal. The directions that Mr. Stanley gave us, if you will remember when we were looking at the photos earlier, some of the VE items that we're looking at, we took out the parking garage. We took out the fence around the parking lot. We changed the way that we were doing the brick on the finish. All of those things add up to dollars. You're talking about $100,000 here, $200,000 there, but it all adds up. So when you look at the VE items where we're at, we look just within the last month, we've been able to pull off an additional almost $1 million out of the project. So we went from $34 million to $30 million on the project to construct City Hall, not including the work that we're doing off to the side without paying those markups. One of the items that we have there, the last item listed is FF&E. I don't know how many people are aware of what FF&E is, but it's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. When we talk about equipment, it could be copiers, it could be desks, cabinets, all of those sort of fixtures that we would provide typically. Once again, there's no reason to roll that into a construction contract and have a markup on it when we can get the negotiated pricing on that. We also have a negotiated contract with a furniture supplier here in town, and typically we can beat the original cost on materials as much as 40 to 50%. So we're looking at that as well. So that kind of gives you a breakdown of where we're at. I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Danforth. Councilman Sherlin, I know that this was a discussion item you requested, so I would see if you're ready to ask any questions, and then we'll all contribute.
The thing I would like to ask a question on, why can't we use the furniture we currently have?
We absolutely will be using some of the furniture that we have. Some of the furniture that we have, actually some of it's actually from the air base when it was here. So that furniture we probably won't reutilize, but some of the furniture, the executive furniture, stuff like that is in good shape, it will be reallocated. There's no way that I could do the total FF&E for the number that we have left over. So we'll be looking at like furnishings out of some of our meeting rooms that we currently have here at City Hall, reallocating it over there. Anything that is in good condition will move to the new City Hall.
How soon will you be able to give us approximate number on that?
Right now, I would say the earliest I could do it, because I've got to get into negotiations with our furniture supplier. I've got to do a walkthrough evaluation on everything that we've got here. So we'll do a room-by-room walkthrough to say this moves, this doesn't move. And then at that point in time, I'll know exactly what I need for furnishings at the new location, and then I'll negotiate a price and be able to give you a solid number at that point in time.
Another question I saw is we have the IT split between the basement and the first floor, is
Yes,
that
sir.
right? Why are we splitting wouldn't it be better if we had them all together, or?
No, sir. Really what the issue is with IT, a lot of the stuff, when I say they're decommissioning computers, they bring everything in on pallets, so they get large orders that come in, and then they do actual physical tear downs of the equipment. Most of the people you see up on the second floor are programmers or maintenance. They do online maintenance of equipment. That's their primary function. So you really don't want people banging hammers and tearing stuff apart while you're in there trying to program. So that's the reason it's split up into two different areas.
Okay. I think that concludes my questions, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, sir. On this end, Mr. Smith, I know you've been on this the longest, Councilman. Do you have any further questions on any of this?
Don't have any.
Okay, thank you, sir. Councilman Tips, you have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so I do have some questions. Can you approximate the total square footage of future space? And can you tell me if it's finished out or unfinished?
Well, according to building code, we have to encapsulate the entire surroundings. So in other words, we have to bring the entire building up to energy codes. So all of the exterior walls will be fully developed. However, when we're doing a wall in some of those spaces, the grayscale areas that you were looking at, we're only putting up studs and insulation there. We're not sheetrocking it because whatever that future use is, I don't know what it is. And so it could potentially be a lease space that you as a council leases to another entity, or it could be expansion as the city continues to grow. So those spaces are not developed. However, I do have to have power there in those areas for when they're ready to develop, and I do have to have HVAC because sprinkler systems throughout there. The last thing I want is another broken water line. So when you're looking at that, to circle back around what you asked me for, current City Hall right now is a little over 65,000 square feet of occupied space. What we will have over there is going to be closer to 80,000 square feet of occupied space. So we will have another 40,000 square feet that we can develop into the future. So as the city grows, we don't have to buy another building or do another job. We can grow within our existing facility in a building that we already own.
So to go back and summarize that, everywhere that's gray on our renderings, we have all our MEP, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire sprinkler, all of our exterior walls insulated. We are not sheetrock, tape texture, trim, floor, doors, none of that is in there.
None of that's being done. And
So-
a lot of that was, quite frankly, at your direction when we met was what can we do to control the pricing? And of course, obviously our price, our max is what the budget is. So we're going to do everything to stay within the budget. So that's why you're looking at the VE items. You know, to cut $4 million off of a job like this is a tough ask. But we were able to get there with our contractors and with our architects. So.
Okay. 35 is the original scope.
Correct.
And can you give me the difference in the original scope and the revised scope of work, just in the large items, like you said, fence, garage? So this is parking garage, is that correct?
That's correct.
And I think I'm looking at the totality of the 120,000 square feet here. So the parking garage would be in the basement, is that right?
No, the parking garage is actually the structure that's off to the north of City Hall.
Separate structure.
It's a completely separate structure that can be developed at a later date.
Oh,
So
okay.
there's no sense to spend the money on it now and bust the budget or come back and ask. We will have more parking at the new City Hall than we have at the current City Hall. The nice thing is when we do the new City Hall and we have that additional parking, if we need overflow, this existing parking lot will still be in place and still be available to us.
So you have no parking garage in your scope, but you did in the original 35 million?
In the original 35 million. And keep in mind, that budget, when that budget was established, that was almost 3 years ago.
What was the original budget for that parking garage? Do you remember?
The parking garage is around $2 million.
Okay. You mentioned a gym. Can we go back to the basement? I believe it was the basement floor. You had a gymnasium exercise area in that scope?
Yes, we did, right there. So you can see that was the workout equipment. This design was very similar to what we did for PD. in their workout room when we built that. So that was the design we allocated here. The other grayscale area just opposite of the gym, we had talked about doing an employee daycare so that we had a better opportunity to hire people with small children and bring them in, and their children were actually where they work, and it made it easier for us to recruit employees. We deleted that at this time. As market changes and perhaps you as a council see that there's a need for that, we have the space allocated and ready to develop. All of those restrooms and locker rooms that are there, those aren't being built, but we are doing the rough end. So when you do get ready to build it, all of the rough end for the plumbing is already there and ready to go.
Or it could be used for something other.
Okay. What's the current status of construction over there?
Right now, we're just now finishing up the demolition of the existing interior. Basically, walls, flooring, equipment that was left there. All of that stuff is just about all gone out of there. We're at the point now to where we're doing some minor sandblasting over there, getting ready for that. The look of the interior of this new building is the modern industrial look to really take advantage of the historical aspect of the building.
So on the gym, the only expenses that we would expect to incur, rough end of plumbing, and then you're roughing in heating and air and some form of electrical down there, but you don't know, you're not roughing in walls.
No.
Just probably a panel.
Right.
Okay.
That's correct.
Distribution.
And limited lighting, about 25% of what the lighting would be if we were to do it. There's no reason to light up an area that's not occupied.
Right. So almost like job lighting.
Exactly.
Can you give me the total money spent as an estimated amount, not a hard dollar?
Actually, I can't because we really didn't do a breakout on that component, knowing that that would be the first piece we sacrificed because it wasn't essential to the function, but it was something that if we had enough money, we could do it.
Sorry, let me clarify that question. On the project spent to date, not in reference to the gymnasium.
Spent today?
Total amount of money spent on the project to date, not including the building purchase or anything like that.
I would say that we're probably close to, pretty close to $5.5 million to date.
$5.5 million. And then with our contractor, we have a CMAR contract signed, and that's a commitment.
Absolutely.
In that contract, tell us how defined that commitment is in the way of me asking you to value engineer this a little bit. And we've now pulled back on a gymnasium, on a daycare, parking garage, what else? So we have an agreement with our contractor that's able to work on our side as well. It's not an antagonistic relationship in any way. They're able to work with us. We can continue to change a few scopes without changing the contract.
Yes, we have that ability. That's the beauty of the CMAR versus a design bid build. In this scenario, it's in their best interest and in our best interest to provide the best price we can. All of their subcontractors, basically our subcontractors that come in and done the job, have to go through the bid process just like they would for a design bid build. Those bid openings were taken 3 weeks ago now, and so we're in a good spot there.
Okay. So to go back one final time, we have $35 million budgeted. We have a contract that's, let's call it $30 million, or would it be closer to 31?
Right now it's at $30 million to, I would say $30,200,000.
Okay. So if we're at $30 million approximately, and then we have spent for architects and engineers $2 million. We did, $500,000 worth of utility work, $250,000 demo, and then IT is something we need to keep in that budget that we're in housing.
Right.
So that is 2.7. That's $3.5 million. And so we're 33.7 on a $35 million budget. So you technically have a contingency of a little over $1 million to get through the project.
Right now, when you look at that last number, that's where you're at. With our commitments that we have as of today, we're at the $1.4 million left right now. That's without FF&E. So when we look at FF&E, once we go through City Hall and see what we can reallocate, then we're looking at that number.
to go back to a previous council meeting, FF&E was budgeted out of another savings that we had. Mr. City Manager, is that an outstanding item that I have sitting in the budget somewhere else?
No, FF&E is a component of the overall $35 million project. We allocated an estimated 29 or 30 million for construction. We're trying to get inside that number because we estimated we would need around $4 or $5 million to do the FF&E. Now, FF&E is technically, it says furniture, fixtures, and equipment. We're talking about technology. We're talking about, of course, furniture and fixtures. So there's a lot of things that falls inside that, including garage. You know, so we had planned to be able to do a lot of things inside that we're obviously not going to be able to do, and we'll either not do or we'll push to future years to possibly look at doing at a reduced cost. So I don't know if that answers the question necessarily, but I kind of wandered around a little bit too.
A little bit. So let me pause for just a second with you, Mr. Danforth, and just go back to council here in the way of I want to be cautious in we're doing two things here. One, we're evaluating where we currently are on this project, and I think that's really good, not only now but as we move forward. But we're also taking an opportunity to continue to move forward with this project, is what this discussion seems to be going. We have a contractor and we have several other subcontractors that are linked to this. That's a relational issue. In doing business as a city, I think it's important that we make decisions, forecasting and considering how our decisions would affect those in our community that are working alongside of us. And we have good relationships. I want to maintain those. And at the same time, I want to look for any monies that we can repurpose to infrastructure and other priorities. So at a point where something in this building doesn't elevate itself to the same priority as what this council may decide it would like to prioritize, can I get your opinion? If we continue value engineering this, are you already at the point where you've done what you can do with what I've directed, or do you see other areas that we could potentially minimize, square footage that we could pull back on, consolidate, and not hurt ourselves for future councils that may come along? They would have the infrastructure inside of that building that they would need.
Well, it's going to be difficult. I mean, we've really, to steal a phrase from somebody I've worked with in the past, we've picked a lot of meat off the bones on this thing. We truly have. We have some additional scope that's in this. When we talk about the 311 call center, that call center doesn't exist today. So it's an expansion of the square footage that we need to develop. When we look at some of our staffing and office issues that we have in this current structure, we really do have some people stacked on top of each other. Can we move to the new structure and stay stacked on top of each other? There's potential for that if you want to, but it would be a direction that you as a council would give to the city manager to make those kind of calls. Right now, the square footage allocation that we have, and a lot of this, keep in mind, is because of the design of the existing structure with the columns. In some instances, it makes us do a larger office because of columns there, and I can't do a column in the middle of an office. And so you'll see, some, like in the accounting area on the second floor, some of those offices are larger than typical, but all I'm really looking at when I build out that larger office is more flooring. The walls don't really change.
Mayor, I hear what you're saying on value engineering, and what we can do is we can work on that with Jerry and the rest of the team, and bring you and council some options on things we can look at. I mean, I know we're going to have more conversations. We're going to have more conversations as we go forward. I don't know exactly what the answers are, but we can definitely look at everything we have, and we can find every little thing we can do to either change service levels, change space commitments, specifications as much as possible. I think we've been grinding it as much as we can, but definitely we can look at different things we can do.
Okay.
And we can bring that to you, and then with your guidance, go to the rest of the council.
I don't want to stop the discussion, but then what I'm hearing, and we can continue here, but I do think that it would be the best to put this on for a future discussion and to come back to it after we allow you an opportunity to go back through, maybe with a little bit better guidance of, do we want to try to modify some scopes of work, or do we want to try to reduce square footage footprint, and what is our average cost on that? And so I want to ask a few other questions. Councilman Sherlin, I saw you step up to the mic.
Yes, sir. Mayor, I have a question is, where does this building sit in all these plans? Are we going to move over there and tear this down, or has that been decided?
At this point, that has not been decided, no, sir.
So in other words, we could move over partially, cut the cost, and leave some people here.
Well, here's the challenge with that. Quite frankly, the plumbing in this building, I'm at a wing and a prayer. We actually flooded again today. The plumbing on this building, I'm praying that I can make it until I can get into the new building. It is in that bad a shape. The heating and cooling system that we have in this building, it's old galvanized pipe that was installed 60 years ago. A lot of it is failing. We've got patches on top of patches. The challenge was staying, doing both. I've still got to do the HVAC. I've still got to do all of the mechanical. Now all we're talking about is walls. And I don't know that you pick up the benefit. It is definitely an option you can have, but understand it's a risk.
The value, the plan, rather, and again, we're doing whatever council tells us to do. The plan at the time that we started the project was for this building to be demolished and for green space to be put in its place, not for a park, not for any type of some of the concepts that had been planned for this space, like a concert venue or a place for food trucks or whatever else, just green space. The cost for that is not free, for sure. I want to say demolition of this building was $600,000 to $900,000. Is that right?
$600,000 was the quote that I got 6 months ago.
Okay, so $600,000 for demolition, and then we're looking at a little bit less than $1 million to turn into green space. So there had been a plan to remove the building, and the reason for that was the cost to make this a long-term or even a short-term functional building was cost prohibitive. We've been kind of nursing it along, knowing that we were looking at a new facility. Doesn't mean that we can't change course. That's just where we had been going. So we've been minimizing the expense to do preventative maintenance on this building, just basically taking care of the things we have to do to get to that horizon where we expect to be moving into the new building. And some of that is a little bit nip-tuck. So, but we'll go whatever direction council wants us to go.
Okay.
I've got a question. So in that 1.6 to demo this and create the green space, was that a part of this 35 original?
No, it was not.
Okay. With the 35 original, that included the garage, it included the gym, included all the things that we value engineered already. So basically what we're looking at is the difference is basically inflation. Is that what we're looking at? It is inflation.
When you look at construction, and I'll rely on Mayor Stanley to kind of back this up. We've been looking at over 6% in the construction industry annually, depending on what we're doing. And so when you look at this budget that was 3 years old, and you do 6%, and then you do another 6 on top of that, that's our difference that we're looking at, and that's the reason for the reduction in the scope within the 35 number.
Okay. So this number that we're looking at right now, we're still, 18 months out?
Correct.
Ish.
But we lock the contracts up, so those numbers can't change.
Okay. So okay. Great. Okay.
One thing to keep in mind, and those in the construction industry or anybody building a home or anything else, when you look at the number for the construction on this project, we're looking at about $214 a square foot to build this thing out. And that's heavy commercial grade, not light commercial or residential. So our numbers are extremely good comparatively speaking to really anything else out there right now.
How much could that go up in the next year and a half?
Well, I think our numbers right now, our numbers are still predicted to increase in some of the areas. When we look at the concrete numbers are actually increasing. Steel numbers have stabilized and have come down in some areas, but copper numbers are going up still. We still have a big challenge, and so when I say copper, that affects all of my HVAC, that affects all of my electrical. I'll give you an example, and this is an easy example to look at. A 5-ton air conditioning unit, 3 years ago, I could get it for $3,500. Now I'm spending $5,250 on it.
Go ahead, Councilman.
So, correct me if I'm wrong. Did you not just tell me that we locked in the prices? Everything's done?
Once we've got the bids, we've got it locked in. And so we will lock those prices in, but we have the ability to still continue to VE. So, for instance, if there's a fixture on there that we look at and we say, you know, that fixture or that steel is running, we can get it for $200,000 less. We still have the ability to switch and drop to the lesser.
Okay, so just to clarify, so you're saying we're capped.
We've hit our
right
cap.
Right now, it's not going to get any more expensive than this. But
Correct.
to Councilman Sherlin's question, we just talked about increases.
Correct.
But we're not worried about those.
Not at this point, we're not.
Okay, but if we can find better deals, we can still do
Absolutely.
that. Okay.
And I will say that both our architect and our contractor are fully on board with those steps.
Yeah.
Anything else at this time?
No.
Mr. City Manager, I think I'd like to put this back up, you know, on a future discussion to revisit it. And then I think as a direction, a couple things I would like to look at. Without redrawing our plans, do we have the ability to go and locate existing square footage that could easily be modified to where we make more out of what we have? And with the goal of finding, say, 10,000 square feet that we could leave unfinished. And with the hope that maybe that total square footage would average, say, 100 a foot. Maybe it won't. But, you know, we're talking about $1 million. So I don't want to go spend $500,000 in redesigns to save $500,000. However, if I could go and find 10,000 square feet and still function and utilize what we have, and there is a net savings in it, I'd like to look for it. And then do we have anything that we could pre-buy or buy now in the way of if we have a commodity price that is down from what you've locked it in at? And so I know you're saying we're monitoring that, we're looking at that. I'm a little cautious on, like, you locked in the pricing on a cap bid, but then, so it's a cost plus, well, it's not. It's a proposed bid not to exceed, but with an allowance to purchase if that commodity comes down. Am I understanding that correctly?
We definitely will be taking that step, looking at it through the process. But once we lock in, and I'll give you an example right now on the electrical, everybody that's doing any big construction that's talking about switchgear, distributors right now are saying, well, we can get you your switchgear, but if you'll pay us a $60,000 bonus, we can get it to you in 10 weeks versus 6 months. We have not stepped into that trap. So we've instructed our electrical contractor on this project. We want you having 2 different vendors fighting for this contract because the number is large enough. One's liable to supply it and hit it to the timeline, and the other one's, if they can't, they lost it. And if it cost me only $10,000 more to get it, I still saved $50,000. So that's the approaches we're taking on those type of commodities, like in the electrical. Another area we've looked at, we've instructed our electrical contractor. You know, the architect had a specific lighting fixture. Well, we've told our electrical contractor, well, we want you to take a look at another different kind of manufacturer that has something similar that we could potentially realize, you know, a $30,000 to $50,000 savings just on light fixtures alone. So we're still taking those steps. We're still in the process of doing a lot of that sort of stuff. But we know with what we have specified and what we've done, we've hit our cap. We know what that number is.
Okay.
So the only direction we can go now is down. And if we look at reduction of square footage, you know, I'll get with the city manager and we'll get with departments and see where we could do something to shrink down those spaces if possible. And then once he gives me that direction, we'll work with our contractor to approach that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right?
If there's nothing further on this one, we're going to move along. Item 6C is a discussion of City of Amarillo Fleet Services.
All right, Mayor, we've got Assistant Director of Public Works, Alan Harder, coming in. Alan, take it away.
Thanks, sir. Thanks, Mayor. Council, good afternoon. Just want to make sure this is on. So as Mr. Miller mentioned, I'm Alan Harder, Assistant Director of Public Works. I just want to talk today something that Mr. Sherwin had requested, a little bit of an overview of how we do decal replacement on our fleet, as well as what we have currently as options for maintaining the cleanliness of our vehicles and equipment. So this is a slide that I believe Mr. Hooper has showed you previously. It's just a high-level overview of our Fleet Services Division. They maintain over 1,100 vehicles and pieces of equipment. You can see there the three largest departments are APD, Public Works, and Utilities. They also, just a few quick facts about them on the right side that I'll go over quickly, 15,000 work orders. That's preventative maintenance, service, major and minor repairs, tire service, and field service. They dispense over 500,000 gallons of unleaded fuel every year and almost 750,000 gallons of diesel fuel every year. So currently the process for replacing the old decals on city vehicles is that is part of the make-ready process. So when we get replacement vehicles in the fleet, as our fleet division is going through and doing inspections and other things like that they have to do, that is the time when they put the decals on the vehicles. There's currently 200 vehicles with the old, approximately 200 vehicles with the old decals on them. The plan right now is that as those are replaced in the next few years, when they come in, the new vehicles come into fleet, they would replace those decals. Approximately a third of those vehicles with the old decals are already ordered, and we expect their arrival, some of them within the next few months, some of them maybe within the next few years. There's just various lead times for different equipment. The schedule to replace all decals would really depend on annual replacement, so year to year, how many pieces of equipment we're replacing. But more than that at this point would be what the lead time to get that equipment in is. And I'll talk a little bit at the end of this about some options for both decal replacement as well as for washing. So washing and cleaning vehicles is actually the responsibility of the departments which the vehicles are assigned to. Resources that we have to help with that are 2 car and pickup washes, one at the service center and one located at the Fleet Satellite Shop, which is at 3rd and Fillmore. The other resource available is a washout with a hose that's located at the service center. There is not a large car wash that's owned by the city, which equipment such as solid waste trucks can go through. And so I'll speak a little bit to that, since that's something I can talk about. In the summertime, when we see the heaviest, dirtiest loads in our solid waste vehicles, and those are, I think we can all agree, some of the dirtiest vehicles that are on the road are our solid waste trucks. What we currently do to clean those is we send them to some of the private truck washes out in town. That costs right now about $65 per wash to do that. That also takes time for the driver to leave their route to go over there, potentially wait in line, and then go through the wash. Just to give you an idea of the cost associated with that, if we were to wash each of our solid waste side load and front load trucks every month, that would be annually $46,000. That's just our front load and side load trucks. So a pretty big cost to keep those trucks going through the car washes at a more regular pace. So to talk a little bit about options that I see as a possibility if we wanted to speed up replacement of decals on vehicles. Currently, it costs $75 per vehicle for the decal and takes about an hour and a half, about an hour and a half to do that with a labor rate of $75 per hour. So the total cost to replace decals on those 200 vehicles would be about $38,000. It would be something that we would implement when the vehicles and equipment come in for routine maintenance, whether that be oil change or inspections, and would take about a year to get that switched over. That would also, though, take time from those mechanics who are doing the preventive maintenance to install those decals. As far as washing right now, one option that Mr. Hooper and I were discussing this morning, and I think would be viable and something I want to look more into if Mr. Miller directs me to, would be the option of talking to contractors who may be able to come on site, like at our service center, in the evenings or weekends when our vehicles are typically not being operated, and potentially do power washing of them there, just to really kind of help keep up with the cleanliness so that when we do go to the private truck washes, maybe we don't have to go as often, or it's not as difficult to get some of that baked on debris, mud, trash off of them. That's kind of what I have for you right now. I think as far as the process moving forward, if you have any questions, but Mr. Miller wants us to investigate anything further, I'd be more than happy to.
Mr. Harder, thank you for the update. Councilman Sherlin, I know you requested that. Do you have any further questions for Mr. Harder? Okay, thank you, sir.
All right, thanks, sir.
At this time, we're going to move on to item 6D. Does anyone have any future requested items they would like to request?
Yes, sir, I do. I would like to have the AEDC put on the agenda to where they would come and tell us about past projects, what all's going on, and just give us a total update. I don't think they've been to a council meeting and addressed council in a while. And I would just like an update from the AEDC board itself. And also I'd like to add a line item as far as liens that the city has against residents. We have I did some research, and just on lawn liens, we have over $2 million that's out there that could be collected, or I think we just need to talk about it and see what's out there and what we need to do about being able to see our money turned more efficiently.
Okay. So those two requested items, Councilman Sherlin. AEDC update and then an accounting on the liens that have been applied against properties. You want residential and commercial?
Yes, please.
Okay. Any questions from staff on that? No? Okay. All right. At this time, we're going to move on to our consent agenda, and then after that, we will take a break. The consent agenda as presented, is there anything that needs to come off of that consent agenda?
Believe it or not.
Are you sure?
I'm positive.
Okay. Not even one.
I went through everything. I asked all the questions and got every answer I was looking for.
All joking aside, I appreciate staff and their responsiveness to Councilman Sherlin and making sure that he's updated and got all his questions answered before we got here. Councilman Tips, any issue with you on this one?
No, sir.
Okay, at this time, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I second.
Okay. Any further discussion on any of this? Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes with a 4-0 vote. At this time, we're going to take a 10-minute break and then reconvene to take on non-consent and the rest of our agenda. Thank you. Really, no issue. Microphone issue. So let me say it again into the microphone, which I think is barely working. We're going to call our meeting back to order. We are now onto our non-consent form of our agenda, and we will start with item 8A, public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 8059. Mr. City Manager.
All right. I know we had Cody plan for this. Cody's out at the meeting, so pass it on. Take it away.
Right. Yeah, Cody Balzan is our principal planner. He's been doing all the work on this. He's ill, so you're stuck with me. I'm Emily Kohler, the Director of Planning. So this is a text amendment to the zoning code. So it is the underlined section. That's all that's changing. And basically we have one set of standards for setbacks for corner lots that are adjacent to an alley, and then we have a different group of standards for setbacks on corner lots that are not adjacent to an alley. And so this is a small change, but it's a little bit confusing with the wording, so I'll try to simplify it. It's proposing to reduce the required side setback on a corner lot in subdivisions that don't have alleys by 5 feet, from 15 feet to 10 feet, for only the higher density zoning districts, which are R3, residential 3, moderate density, and then the 2 multifamily districts. And this is a request that was primarily brought to us by the development community. It's a change that helps them maximize the entire area for a subdivision, so they can do more with the lot layout to be able to deliver more homes at an affordable price point. So just a little bit of background. Our code requires that for lots that are platted after 1968, that both sides of the corner lot are treated like a front yard. So if there's no alley, they require a minimum side setback of 20 feet or the front yard of the zoning district, whichever is less. So for example, in R1, residential 1, that's our lowest density neighborhood, we typically have a 25-foot front yard and a 20-foot side on street without alleys. And for residential 3, which is our highest density single-family zoning district, we typically have a 15-foot front yard setback and a 15-foot side yard, again, without alleys. But if there is an alley, then the code allows a side setback of 10 feet for all the residential zoning districts. So we already have a lot of subdivisions in Amarillo that have the 10-foot side setback. And then I also just want to note that if a house is built with a garage, then the garage has to be set back 20 feet regardless. So the house can be closer, but the garage has to be 20 feet back to allow for the driveway, so the cars are totally off the right-of-way and on private property. I'll skip to this slide because there's a graphic that helps show that that distance, that change from 15 feet to 10 feet, and what that does for the buildable area on the lot. As part of our analysis, we definitely wanted to call out that this is consistent with our housing study that was completed in 2022, which stated that Amarillo needed to better match a financially feasible supply of houses to the core workforce demand, meaning that the majority of homes that we are building are priced above what is affordable to the income level of the highest demand right now, which is the workforce housing. And so one of the recommendations was smaller lots and slightly smaller homes as one strategy. We've had requests from developers, including the zoning case that is 8C on this agenda. They presented an example to us early when we were working on that. That's a PD, but if they were following the typical zoning and the current setbacks as they are now with the 15 feet, they would lose about 43 out of 530 home sites, just as an example of the difference it makes in the way the subdivision can be laid out. So what this is showing is the most common example in Amarillo. This is what we're seeing a lot of being built right now. This is the R3 zoning. It's a 5,000 square foot lot, 50 feet by 100. And so just that small change, that 5 feet change, gives them about another 400 feet of buildable area. So they're able to fit in the maximum number of lots and then also build the size home that meets that market demand. So we have a couple photo examples. Just so you can see visually, the difference really is hard to detect. The average person probably wouldn't even be able to recognize the difference between 15 feet and the 10 foot. Here's another one. So this is a side yard facing a front yard, 15 feet and 10 feet. Again, it's difficult to be able to perceive the difference that this makes just to the average resident in one of these neighborhoods. It really is about the difference it makes to the builders. So all of our development review departments have looked at this and agree that the amendment would not create any detrimental impacts to public safety or orderly growth. We have seen an increase in developers wanting to do subdivisions without alleys. So we'll continue to see this request, we think, in the future as more subdivisions come in without alleys designed. The 4 specified districts have established other regulations that allow for denser style residential, such as the lower minimum lot area and higher maximum lot coverage. And we think that the lessened setback would be consistent with the intent and density scale of the zoning districts. The Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of this, and we're here today. This is the first reading and public hearing.
Thank you, Ms. Kohler. So this is a public hearing. I would like to ask if council has any questions for Ms. Kohler before we invite anyone to speak for or against this issue.
I have one question. What impact it is going to have on water drainage? Because by putting more residents in an area, we're covering more land, which actually covers more runoff. We will create more runoff. In a lot of these areas, I want to know, are we actually doing a drainage impact on this?
Yeah, and there might be, there might be an engineer that.
Yes, sir. Great question. So, absolutely. Every time we do, specifically every time we do new development, there is a drainage report required. Technically, the ordinance says that any subdivision of land into 3 or more lots requires a drainage analysis to be done, and or at the direction of the city engineer. We can require that on any piece of property. And so, in that example, the analysis of how many lots they're proposing is going to be part of their drainage plan. So a lot of times even, most times, each individual lot is evaluated, and there's a finished floor elevation specified for each individual lot in that entire development, meaning that the engineer who's put that design together has looked at each individual lot and the number of lots that they're creating, and their study reflects those things.
Yeah, and so each development, they're going to have a professional engineer that's going to stamp that project, stamp using their license. And they're going to be assuring the city that that development will not have an adverse impact on the community or on neighboring properties with regard to drainage. So it'll work.
Right, and that is our mantra for the submission of a drainage report. I mean, we
has
talk
to work.
about it. It has to work. Provide us the analysis, show us that it works, show us that it meets the criteria, that it doesn't negatively impact your neighbor. It has to work, and we'll approve it.
Any other questions from council? No?
Got a question for you.
Yes, sir.
As a builder, what do you think of this?
So my question to staff when we were going over the agenda was side entry garages, which you've addressed. So my concern would be allowing the sale of a lot without a restriction for a side entry car garage right there. And perhaps a property owner would buy that, not understand they couldn't do a side entry car until they got there, and then they'd be frustrated. So you've addressed that. On the flood study, I would anticipate that this additional 5 feet, probably for our developer, allowed for more homes to be developed on this plat of land. So the flood study is going to reflect the additional rooftop and drainage and everything like that. So it maximizes the ability for our developer to meet the market that he's going for that dollar cost average. And at the same time, all it does is just reduce a little side yard, really, that potential homeowner would have to take care of. So less watering as well, I guess I would say. That's my only thoughts on it, Councilman Smith.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Any other questions from council? No. Okay, at this time, we will open the public hearing and allow anyone that would like to speak for or against this item. Upon seeing none, I will close the public hearing and entertain a motion for item 8A.
Move to adopt ordinance number 8059 as presented in the agenda.
I second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilman Tips and a second from Councilman Smith. Any further discussion on this? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes with a 4-0 vote. Okay, we will be moving on to item 8B, a public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 8060. Mr. Kendrick.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. This item is a public hearing and first reading to consider a rezoning of an 8.12 acre tract of unplatted land in Section 11, Block 9, BSNF survey in Potter County from Agricultural District to Planned Development District 405 for a multi-building development with general retail land uses in the vicinity of.
Mr. Kendrick, I'm going to interrupt you real quick before you get into the full presentation. So I myself am an interested party because I'm a general contractor that has been hired to perform one project in this development. So I'm going to abstain from this discussion. However, I will, and I won't be voting. However, I will continue to run the meeting. Go right ahead.
All right. The rezone from Agricultural District to Planned Development District 405 for a multi-building retail development in the vicinity of Northwest 12th and Western Street. And the applicant is OJD Engineering LLC for Tascosa Development Company LLC, Tascosa Golf Club LLC, and the Marsh Gwendolyn O'Brien Estate. And the applicant's proposed use, as mentioned, is a multi-building development that will feature multiple lots with shared access easements providing access to the internal lots. And regarding the comprehensive plan future land use and character map, the Planning and Zoning Commission found that the request technically would not comply with that map, as this area is identified as being in the suburban residential category. And additionally, they noted that while this technically is not located at a section line intersection, so technically it does not conform with the neighborhood unit concept of development. However, when looking at existing land use and zoning patterns in the area, you can see that to the east of this property it is an industrial zone with industrial development, and to the west is the golf course and some single family homes. So a transition in zoning with a retail type land use such as this is something that would typically be recommended and an appropriate land use given the location between those two very unique land uses. And additionally, typically along TxDOT right-of-ways, you also, those sites are typically more suited for non-residential development given the amount of traffic that's typically seen. And finally, they also noted that this area is underserved by retail. The closest retail type zoning and development is about 1.5 miles away. So there is a need in this area for retail type land uses to serve these immediately surrounding subdivisions. The Planning and Zoning Commission would also like to call out a few of the specific development standards that are going to be incorporated in this planned development. Lots are going to be required to either front upon a public street or common areas that are designated as public ingress, egress, maintenance easements, private utility easements, private drainage easements, and also shared parking that is to be designated by the plat. Uses are allowed are all those that are allowed in general retail. A fence that is a minimum of 6 foot tall and is either solid or constructed of wrought iron and masonry columns is going to be provided on the west property line between the site and the golf course and the one lone home to the west. This has been discussed previously with that homeowner that's immediately to the west, and they actually were open to that idea. And a developer also wants to create a development that isn't walled off, more of an integral part of these subdivisions that surround this area. Maximum lot coverage is 60%. Typically for general retail, it's 50%. However, given that this subdivision is going to be sharing parking within that common lot area, that is why it's pushing those values up for some of those lots, as the areas that would typically be parking lot for these lots is actually a shared lot. So when you look at the development as a whole, the lot coverage is about 23%. So visually, it looks like a lot of other retail developments in Amarillo. And signs will conform with the standards for general retail district until a sign master plan is adopted at a later date. And finally, any additional standards will follow GR, typical development standards. The Planning and Zoning Commission was of the opinion that the incorporation of the above requirements are appropriate and would not result in any detrimental impacts to the area. No comments were received as of this meeting from the public notices. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval with a 5-all vote. And on your screen now is the proposed site plan that is running concurrently with this rezoning. It's not an attachment within the ordinance, but we wanted to give you all a visual as to what is being worked on in conjunction with this rezoning.
Okay, does council have any questions for Mr. Kendrick?
The house to just the west of this, they didn't have a problem or anything with it?
No, they did not. We did not hear from that property owner specifically. I know in the past, Mr. Sherlin, that they have expressed support for it, but in the latest round of notices that went out for this request, we did not hear from them.
Okay.
Anything, Councilman Smith? No, sir. Okay, Councilman Tips?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kendrick. At this time, we will open a public hearing. Is there any party here or any individual here that would like to speak for or against this item? Upon seeing no one, we will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion, we accept ordinance 8060 as stated in the agenda.
Second.
Adopt. I'm sorry.
Would you mind revising?
I've even got a cheat sheet here and I didn't say it.
Go ahead, make the motion again.
I move to adopt ordinance 8060.
I'll second that also.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilman Sherlin to adopt the motion and a second by Councilman Smith. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes with a 3-0 vote. Item 8C is another public hearing. Mr. Brady Kendrick.
This item is a public hearing and first reading for the rezoning of a 136.63 acre tract of unplatted land to change from residential district 3, moderate density district, agricultural district, and planned development districts 400, 400A, 401, and 401A to planned development district 404 for a single family subdivision with varying development standards in the vicinity of Southwest 34th Avenue and Soncy Road in Randall County. And the applicant is Furman Land Surveyors, Inc. for Beaton Bow Homes, LLC. And the applicant is requesting the above zoning of this property to develop the tract into a single family subdivision that will feature development standards that differ from those that are typical within our zoning ordinance. The applicant's desire is to create a single family subdivision that is unique in character both visually and with the housing products that are being offered. The applicant did previously zone this property in a variety of ways for this use. However, they wanted to due to making some changes along the way and some recent changes they wanted to incorporate, they wanted to bring this, we as staff and also the developer wanted to bring this all under one singular plan development, as it would make enforcing of those standards much more concise. So we felt, and the developer did as well, that unifying all this under one plan development was the best way to go. The Planning and Zoning Commission found that the request would conform with the neighborhood unit concept of development and the comprehensive plan's future land use and character map for the area. And within this plan development, there's two distinct areas. You got Area A in red, which is what the developer is calling their cottage product. And the area in blue is Area B, which is a more traditional single-family product that mirrors a lot of what we see in Residential District 3. So within Area A, that cottage product will feature homes that are in about the 1,000 to 1,300 square foot range, and will have a smaller lot footprint. The minimum lot size that they are required to have will be 3,380 square feet, with a minimum lot width of 40 feet and a minimum lot depths of 85 feet or 75 feet, depending on if the lot is located on a cul-de-sac or a street knuckle. And all other standards would conform with the standards within moderate density for single-family detached homes. In Area B, like I said, will typically conform with most of what is in R3 other than lot width. They will be able to utilize a lot width that is as low as 45 feet, which 50 is what is typically required. And they wanted to do that to create a visual look that way it's not so cookie cutter. They have a variety of products and lot widths. And then also I would like to mention that the setback amendment that was considered a couple items ago, they also did incorporate those setbacks into this plan development regarding the corner lots. They want to be able to observe that 10-foot side-on-street setback on the corner lots as well, and all other setbacks would follow the typical setbacks for the respective districts, whether it's R3 and the Area B or moderate density in Area A. So there was a point where this rezoning was going to get to you all before the text amendment did. However, it just happened to work out that they both came at the same meeting. Other than that, the Planning and Zoning Commission found that the request is appropriate and would not result in detrimental impacts to the area, and also does fill a need that was identified in the 2022 housing study that was also referenced in that previous item. We did send notices on this item, and no comments have been received as of this meeting, and the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend approval of the request with a 7-0 vote.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kendrick. Anyone here on council have any questions for Mr. Kendrick on this item? No. If I could, I would like to get a little better information. Wes, if you don't mind, on the cottage area, my question would be, are these rentals or are they for sale?
They'll be for sale.
Okay.
To introduce myself, first mayor, council, and city staff that I haven't met yet, my name is Wes Everett. I am representing Beaton Bow Homes. I am the North Area land planner. So my area is Amarillo, Lubbock, and Wolforth. So y'all will see me at a lot of meetings.
Well, Mr. Everett, thank you for being here. I know you guys are trying to meet a need that we have. So my curiosity is, if they weren't just rental, which we do see continuing to develop, meeting that need, but if these are for sale homes and they're 1,000, 1,300 square feet, do you have an average price point that you're trying to get to?
Yes, so we're in the area of around 113 a square foot to 120. Okay. What we go after, our market is first-time home buyers. We want the best quality we can for those first-time home buyers. We want to be able to get them in. Another big goal for our company that I've realized as I've came on that I want to state is we want to make sure to be able to build into community and also keep what we call trade partners. Everybody else would call it subcontractors, and I've had to learn our company vernacular. But our point is not only to help first-time home buyers, but it's also to help the trade community here locally to keep working, make sure that they're building homes and that they have paychecks coming in every week.
That's great, Mr. Everett. I know we've struggled to be able to hit that price point. So you're going to be below the $200,000 price point.
It's going to be right below that, somewhere right in that 150 to right under 200.
Could you give us a time frame on when you think you'll break ground and when you think you would? Is this 2 phases or?
So we're actually looking at 8 units or 8 phases
okay.
through the area. Our hope is right after the first of the year is in Unit 1. Once that we're able to get that submitted, that's the first area that we would be able to, and I think it comes in off of the loop, and that we would be able to start that first homes then.
What's the total number of houses in this new development, including the cottages, please?
I had that number, sorry. Apologize.
That's
it's
okay.
Right in, if I remember right, it's around the 650 range.
Okay, great. Mr. Everett, thank you for the additional information. I just wanted to go through that. Appreciate you being here.
I'm here for any other questions y'all have.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, no further questions. At this time, we will open a public hearing on item 8C. Anyone that would like to speak for or against this item? Upon seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance number 8061. No.
Okay. We have a very energetic motion from Councilman Tips and a somewhat second from Councilman Smith. Okay. All in favor of this item, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? That item passes with a 4-0 vote. On to our last item on non-consent is item 8D. Mr. City Manager.
Mayor, I believe this item has been requested to be pulled, and the entity that asked for it has requested to take it off, and they may revisit it at a later date.
Okay, so the entity that put this on the agenda as a request also said they weren't ready and they pulled it off.
They're not ready right now, and they might revisit it during another cycle.
All right, Ms. City Secretary, do we need to do anything further with item 8D? Okay. All right, at this time, then that concludes our non-consent portion of our agenda, and we will have our city attorney read our executive session language, and we'll step into exec.
Yes, sir. So the Texas Open Meetings Act closed session of the Amarillo City Council was announced on June 13th, 2023 at 5:18 p.m. under the following authorities. Section 551.071, consult with attorney about opinion or contemplated litigation or settlement of the same. Consult with an attorney on the matter in which the attorney's duty to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct conflicts with this chapter. Section 551.072 discuss the purchase, exchange, list, sale, or value of real property. Public discussion of such would not be in the best interest of the city's bargaining position. Section 551.087 discuss commercial or financial information received from an existing business or business prospect from which the city is negotiating for the location or retention of a facility, or for incentives the city is willing to extend, or for financial information submitted by the same.
Thank you, sir. We're adjourned to executive session, please.